going on, Jerome's? So since everyone and their mom is doing it, we have to weigh in. So the most accurate quarterback tier rankings in the known universe. And if you disagree with any single one of the placements, you are wrong. How does it feel? So our rankings are tier 1. Elite of the operators. Tier 2, guys that you win because of. Most likely good, Kirk Cousins. Can win with, who knows, probably ass, and also confirmed ass. Right, so we're going to dive on in, and these are parsed out in their individual tiers by ranking. So left to right is going to be the ranking within said tier. So tier 1, a man apart. I mean, Mahomes, all the hype, all of the bluster, all this, that, and the other thing. Patrick Mahomes truly is in a class by himself. He can do it with weapons. He can do it without weapons, and he's just amazing. And yeah, I really have no dog in this fight. I'm not a Chiefs fan. I'm not a Chiefs hater, but calling a spade and calling balls and strikes, Patrick Mahomes is a generational quarterback. What he's done, getting the Chiefs to the AFC title game every single year he's been a starter, astounding. And he will go down as one of the greats, if not the great, by the end of his career. Tier 2, so left to right, in order, Lamar, who... Yeah, people keep hating on Lamar. I don't really understand it, and they're just running out of reasons to hate Lamar. I mean, Lamar was sublime against the Texans. You think any one of these other jabroni quarterbacks has a 4-touchdown game in the divisional round, and why are they just picking nits with Lamar? Doesn't make sense. Jumping Joe Burrow, people forget. I mean, Joey B, it's sort of out of sight, out of mind, but Joe Burrow is absolutely damn elite, and he's coming back for revenge, man. Like, if the Bengals can actually get a freaking offensive line in front of him where he doesn't die, that makes sense there. Josh Allen, again, Josh Allen is very divisive. He's very polarizing. It's basically when he came into the draft out of Wyoming, where he was the most polarizing draft prospect in NFL draft history that I can remember, where basically, like, no one has a neutral opinion on Josh Allen. Either he is a franchise savior who needs help, or he's a high variance franchise destroyer who's never going to win anything. All right, so TBD, but I think that certainly he is a guy that elevates the Bills. I think if the Bills had Derek Carr, they're a lower quarter of the league team. So I mean, you have to respect Josh Allen. Stafford. So after Stafford was dinged up last year, you thought it was, okay, he's got a Super Bowl, and now he's just going to be cashing those Rams checks and walk off in the sunset. What Stafford did this year with Puka doing amazing stuff, and also Cooper Kupp sort of taking a step back. I mean, Matthew Stafford is that dog, man. And he was great in that wild card game against the Lions. It came up a little bit short. It is what it is. But, I mean, Stafford can still do it, and he's freaking ridiculous, man. Next here, most likely good. So Justin Herbert, and Herbert has a little bit of Josh Allen syndrome going on, where he puts up the stats, he makes the highlights. Yeah, obviously not with his legs like Josh Allen does, but the question is he going to take the Chargers to the next level? Or is it a spot where he needs help around him? And Brandon Staley certainly did him no favors. And, I mean, whoever ends up being the Chargers' next head coach, maybe Jim Harbaugh, maybe things could work out. Who knows? Jalen Hurts, again, I mean, Jalen Hurts was in the Super Bowl last year. I mean, Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate last year. Jalen Hurts played good this year in spurts, but there was just a disconnect, whether the martyred OC Brian Johnson, well, not martyred, more scapegoated OC Brian Johnson, or it's clear that Sirianni and Hurts don't see eye to eye because Sirianni is a child and Jalen Hurts is a mature dude. And I really like Jalen Hurts. And, I mean, if you take away the tush push, like maybe he's basically Tua, I don't know, man. But I feel like there was so much dysfunction with the Eagles, but Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. CJ Stroud, I mean, we could almost put Stroud in the tier 2 because you could make a good case that CJ Stroud should have been in the MVP conversation, or at least be a finalist this year, and the future is just going to get brighter and brighter as Houston continues to rack up and stack up talent. Kyler, so I sort of go back and forth on Kyler. Like, is he a guy that is going to elevate your team, or is he a guy that you win with? I guess we're going to find out because it seems like the Cardinals and Austin Ford are going to roll with Kyler. And, I mean, Kyler's probably getting Marvin Harrison Jr. So we're going to see how good Kyler can be. Jordan Love, I really hate to say this, but I think Jordan Love is probably going to be good. And you look at those young weapons. You look at what Jordan Love was able to do the second half of the season. And also, let's not forget, I mean, Jordan Love was ass, thank you, the first half of the year. And also the Vikings dominated him up in Lambeau, but sort of is what it is. Tier 4, Kirk Cousins. So Kirk is walking that fine line between a guy that you can win with and a guy that you win because of. And you have to respect the way that Kirk has operated the last year and a half with Kevin O'Connell. If he stayed healthy this year, he shoulda, coulda, woulda been in the MVP conversation. I think that he would give the Vikings the best chance to win in 2024. But are they going to hitch their wagons to him, or is Kirk going to get paid in free agency? Do the Raiders or the Steelers or the Falcons come out of the woodwork? Maybe the Niners? Who knows? Jared Goff. So Goff is an interesting situation where he went to a Super Bowl with the Rams, but then had the lowest offensive output in Super Bowl history. Thanks to Brian Flores' defense, by the way. Face. But he goes to Detroit. It's sort of like an afterthought of the Matthew Stafford trade. It's like, oh, yeah, Brad Holmes was with the Rams. So he'll just take Jared Goff, the warehouse's contract, and then go from there. But I mean, Jared Goff has looked extremely good with all the weapons and behind the best offensive line of football with the Lions. Ben Johnson schemes him up some fantastic stuff. And it's a question, like, is Jared Goff good because he's good, or is he only good because of the weapons, the offensive line, and Ben Johnson? It's a chicken or the egg situation. Dak, man. So Dak is what the media wants you to think Kirk Cousins is, where Dak has a big contract, Dak kills his team in high leverage spots, Dak can mop the floor with bad opponents. I mean, is Kirk Cousins some of that? Maybe, but Kirk Cousins is much better than Dak Prescott. Like, if given a choice between a quarterback, price, it does not matter, but quarterback 1 year next season, I'm taking Kirk 10 times out of 10 over Dak. I do not trust Dak. I don't think that he's ever going to get over the hump, and I think he just sort of is what he is. I think that he's Jimmy Garoppolo with better PR. That's exactly what he's going to be. Next up, quarterbacks you can win with. So quarterbacks that need everything around them to be perfect or nearly perfect, and you can go from there. Brock Purdy is the prime example of this, and again, put Brock Purdy on the Panthers. How many wins do the Panthers have? I think they're probably in the same boat, but I mean, it's not his fault that he's in a perfect situation with Shanahan, with Trent Williams, and especially with those weapons that turn his little dink and dunk passes into 80-yard touchdowns. So you don't hate the player, hate the game. Rodgers, I mean, last couple of years with the Packers, like, Rodgers was not the kind of guy who could elevate the team. Now, could you win with him if the Jets have that great defense back again? If you surround him with weapons and you instantly upgrade that offensive line, which was ass last year? Yeah, I think that you could win a couple games with the corpse of Aaron Rodgers in this spot. Geno had a nice career renaissance with Seattle. He's got some great weapons on the outside in the whole Shane Waldron offense, currently moving over to the Bears. But it depends on who comes in as head coach, who comes in as a new OC. And, I mean, I like Geno a lot, but also I don't think that I wouldn't even put Geno in the Kirk Cousins tier. Baker showed what you can do when you got future Hall of Fame wide receiver Mike Evans. You got a pretty damn solid running game. You got a decent offensive line, as well as Godwin's doing some really good things there. So and also Dave Canlis, respect. I think there's a good shot that Dave Canlis could end up being the head coach of the Panthers, given his ties with Dan Morgan in Seattle. So I think that, Baker is probably playing himself into some money. I don't think that he's a guy that can just stand alone and carry a team. But if he's part of a team where you have weapons, a good O-line, a good OC, and good defense, you can probably win a couple games. Tua, I really want to buy into Tua, except I think that he's a primary reason why the Dolphins struggled against good teams, where if he had to go toe-to-toe in a shootout in a big-time high-leverage game against Burrow, against Mahomes, against Josh Allen, just don't see it. Then Flacco. So, Flacco stepped into a good situation with the Browns, and I mean, I think he's just a caretaker at this point. I think he's been a caretaker all his career. But also, what was great is with the Ravens and Ozzie and DaCosta, where they wanted to extend Flacco. He's like, no, I'm going to bet on myself. And then he goes on a complete ass tear of the playoffs and just got hot and won a Super Bowl. And then they had to make him the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. Next. Oh, we skipped. Oh, there we go. Who knows? So we don't know if they're ass. We don't know if they're elite. We don't know if they're guys you win with. So Fields, that should be troubling for the Bears. It's been 3 years, and you don't know if Justin Fields is going to be the guy. Now, I think that he will ultimately be a guy that you can win with. I think that Fields needs a great offensive line. He needs weapons, and I think that he could be an orchestrator from that regard. But is he a guy that's going to elevate his teammates, like a Mahomes, like Lamar, like Burrow? Probably not. Sam Howell. Sam Howell did the best with what he could in Washington, but also there's games where he just straight up ignored Scary Terry and Jahan Dotson. It just doesn't make sense. But Washington was a mess, and I'm intrigued by Howell, and maybe it's just because of our South Korean connection, but he does not give an F. And he slings it. He's got a little bit of Jay Cutler in him. Kind of like that, man. Will Levis. Will Levis had some high points. He had some very low points, but also it's really tough to judge based on what the Tennessee Titans were doing this year, especially on offense. Anthony Richardson. I think Richardson's going to be really good. I think he has a chance to be a guy that is above a guy that you can win with. I think that he could be an ultimate X factor, but injuries this year, out of sight, out of mind. He'll come back next year for a vengeance. Trevor Lawrence, I don't know. I mean, if it was Trevor Lawrence 2 years ago, you would say that most likely good territory. But as of right now, I mean, you don't know. You really don't know. And it's coming up on time if you're going to pay Lawrence. If you're not, I think this might be a little bit harsh. If I could edit right now, I'd probably put him in the can win with category. But the Jaguars started out 8-3 in the midst of playoffs, and a big part of their downside was the performance of Trevor Lawrence down the stretch. So definitely an eyebrow raise there. Probably ass. So guys that have had their shot and are probably ass. All right, so Kenny Pickett. Yeah, I mean, a lot's been made like Kenny Pickett is completely inert in throwing the ball, but he does have weapons. But I mean, the whole Matt Canada thing, I don't know. Daniel Jones. I feel like you could almost put Daniel Jones in confirmed ass because he has weapons in New York. He's working with Brian Daboll. They gave him the contract. He's not worth the contract. Mac Jones is confirmed ass. Yeah. Russ, at this stage of his career, you can blame Sean Payton. You can blame the mess of the Broncos early on in the year. But, I mean, Russ is not the same guy he was in Seattle. But also, I don't think that he's – could you put him in the Flacco territory where he's an old man who could still win a couple games and everything's perfect? Sure. Also, it's crazy. Kirk and Russ are the same age. But it just seems like Russ is completely washed, and Kirk is still staying steady at his above-average rate of play. Bryce Young, so it's hard to judge Bryce Young based off of the 1 year in Carolina, but it's a mess. They have no talent anywhere, and I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but it is what it is. And then lastly, confirmed ass, Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder had everything, man. Like, yeah, Arthur Smith holding back that offense, but you had all those weapons, and you got benched like 3 times. Nah. Derek Carr, no. Not buying in, never. Zach Wilson is ass. Jimmy G is complete ass. Thank you. So there we go. Anyways, that is it. Let us know where you agree, and let us know where you agree the most accurate quarterback tiers in the known universe. Yeah, you guys are the best. You know what to do. Skull production value.